Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar about how to prepare your move from HCM to Employee Central. I want to really thank everybody for being here. I know that for like us here in Atlanta, we're just starting our day, but there's a lot of you who are getting to the end of their day. So I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here. I do have one small housekeeping message for everybody that has a question during the session. Please use the Q&A function that's within the platform. We'll either say ask a question or just have a Q&A button. That way we can kind of use the time we have to go through as much as the material as we can and tackle all the questions that you have afterwards. We have both TJ and Gauthier and myself here to help answer those questions and make sure that that you leave with all the information you can during the session. So with that, I want to dive right in. First of all, let's talk a little bit about what to expect from this webcast. We will really talk about 4 main points. We'll talk about when you need to start thinking about preparing your actual EC implementation, what you need to prepare for your EC implementation. Then we have Rike and Michael here from Grundfos to share throughout this a lot of their experiences that they have seen in being a long-term SAP customer and preparing this journey. And then at the end, we'll share one quick thing that you can do today to actually be able to start your preparation. I want to first introduce our company and ourselves. My name is Thomas. I'm here to lead creative and marketing and to make sure that we have content like we have today and we keep delivering this on an ongoing basis. From our team, we also have TJ here in Atlanta with me and Gauthier, who is in Belgium. TJ takes point on our product development and Gauthier leads the quality of our delivery and the ongoing innovation that goes along with that. They each possess an incredible amount of detailed knowledge and integration and our projects throughout the years that we've been doing this. And they'll be here, like I said earlier, to answer any questions that you may have at the end of this. We have been at this for 9 years with a focus on data integration. We actually have a specific data integration experience in moving to Employee Central. And we're one of the only companies in this field in the world that has received the recognized expertise from SAP on the data integration piece. We're also heavy IDP contributors. The implementation design principles are basically the playbooks that help partners and customers adhere to what are the best and leading practices to move to EC. And we're active contributors in that and writing a lot of those. And throughout our years, we've migrated over 1 million employees between HCM and Employee Central. So with that, I want to talk a little bit about the background of how we met Rike and Michael and started working with Grundfos. We met at a boutique session in Brussels. There, we focused highly on data migration and the critical design aspects was a key that we talked about in that session. And with that, I want to kind of hand it to both Rike and Michael to talk a little bit to how we met and talk a little bit about Grundfos and their company and their mission.
Thank you. Well, maybe just a brief introduction first. My name is Michael Bendiksen. I'm part of Grundfos. Been in Grundfos for 10 years, and I'm globally responsible for all IT solutions within the HR area, including SuccessFactors and payroll and other solutions in this. And then I have Rike with me from my team.
And my name is Rike Istrup, and I am HR architect in Grundfos globally.
Short background on Grundfos. Shortly, we are a pump manufacturing company, selling and producing and manufacturing from small-scale household pumps to large industrial wastewater pumps. And we've been doing it for quite a while, since 1945, where the company was established. We are currently operating in in more than 60 different countries around the world, where we have in some countries both sales and operations companies set up. So we are globally present, and something, of course, also that has had and does have a major impact on the things that we've been working on with our EC project and the preparations. We're roughly around 19,000 people distributed globally, and then we are a primarily foundation-owned company, which means we basically have more or less one owner. And that means that we're not such a listed company, but also leading to the next slide is also connecting to our purpose as a company, that we are in that sense a truly purpose-driven company where making a profit is not the end goal in itself. We actually reinvest what we do, what we earn in the company to bring us even further down in what we can do to help solve the world's water and climate change. Is also closely connected to SDG 6 and 13. We have been, as also mentioned here by Thomas, we have been a long-term SAP customer for many years, and started the journey with SuccessFactors and moving on to the clouds in 2016, before we then took the next step here with moving towards Employee Central that we started earlier this year. And then maybe leading up to that was when we met Comentec, and maybe Rikke, you can elaborate a bit on that when we met in Brussels.
At that period of time, we were gathering information about Employee Central and the project, and we talked to other companies in order to understand how their projects has been and what their pain point has been. And one thing we found out was that it was very much a question about integration and data and migration issues that was a high risk and would be for us as well. And at that point of time, I went with a colleague to the boutique in Brussels and heard about the mindset and the concept for migration that Comentec had. And I think I thought that this was the first time I had seen it from that point of view. Most of the time, you heard most about the traditional implementation of EC as a module, but the specific focus on the migration part was something I thought we could use in our preparation. So I came back and arranged the session with Comentec and my manager and my colleagues, and we agreed on moving on.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, thank you for that. And we'll talk a little bit later as well as to more of the detailed experiences you had. But thank you both very much, Rick and Michael, for sharing that. From this point, let's move to the portion where we talk a little bit about the integration that they mentioned. Really, integration is the key that connects all the stages together and leads to being the intelligent enterprise. So when integration handles that portion, it is often in a lot of tracks overlooked and seen as a supplemental activity. And as Rikke mentioned, like it wasn't on their mind when they were here at the boutique session until we mentioned it. And that's often the case where it does then eventually, because it's overlooked, lead to delays and a lot of rework. And a very good comparison with this is to compare it to plumbing. It's something that needs to usually be invisible within your house. And when it's good, just like good plumbing, good integration ensures that all the data is connected and flowing between the business systems to be able to make those meaningful decisions. But when the plumbing is bad or improperly planned and improperly executed, it leads to a lot of issues that stay invisible for a long time, but that when they are no longer invisible, they may end up flooding your living room, your office, or much, much worse than that. So in order to make sure that all those items are taken care of, and you have to make sure that your integration foundation is very solid. So to that end, as we talked about in the boutique session in Brussels, we focused a lot on the data piece, but the data migration is really one of the three important takeaways that are part of a successful EC implementation. And really it requires the early definition of the data, the design decisions, and the planning. Now, to talk a little bit as to examples, and I know TJ and Gauthier will have a lot more detailed examples, but just a little bit from a high level. Some examples for data is that we all understand that setting up SuccessFactors Employee Central should be done according to leading practices. But we also know that HCM, for a lot of those that have been on there for a long time, has a lot of customizations and a lot of custom configuration and logic. So we need to find some way to harmonize that data to make it fit in Employee Central. That also means that all the fields with data that are currently maintained in SAP need to find a new home in Employee Central, either in staying in HCM or being transferred to EC or having another system that they live in. So the decision that goes along with that on where this new home will be will impact the need for what type of harmonization and data cleansing will need to happen. The other portion that I mentioned there already is the data cleansing itself. It's usually a major cause for delay in a project. A big example for this is the national ID that requires a very specific format in EC depending on the country, and there's a lot more items for this, but HCM has a lot more tolerance for these formattings where EC does not. So cleaning up those examples takes a lot of effort if it's not properly taken care of beforehand. The same goes for a lot of the design decisions. I mean, with the decoupled info type framework, it's used by the replication from EC to SAP. So we need to check early if that is already activated. And if not, we need to assess the impact of activating it. So same with manager assignment. I mean, the manager assignment is based on the position to position relationship and not more on the chief of org units. So we need to assess the impact on the downstream applications and the structural organization on the reporting and on the workflows and et cetera. So those are just a couple of examples for the data and the design decisions. As far as the planning, we always need to make sure that we have 2 end-to-end test cycles that include data migration, data replication, and UAT within those test cycles. Otherwise, if you wait with that and do it at the end, and do any change at the end of the first test cycle, it will have to be tested in production. And like I said, there's a lot more examples like this, and we'll be happy to cover that at the end of this. But just for the interest of time, let's maybe move to the next topic, which is a lot of the recurring implementation topics that we have seen throughout our years here is that implementation projects run over time, they run over budget, or the entire timeline is not under control. And there are some core reasons that come back to those 3 pillars: the design, the data, and the planning. And one of that is that the late discovery of how the data behaves in EC often leads to a lot of extended timelines because now data cleansing has to happen. Same goes for when it's over budget. It's because the design does not match the reality, and that then leads to a lot of unnecessary rework and data migration, which means that the migration with real data is often delayed, which is a crucial step in completing a successful EC implementation. And then the third one, the lack of planning compounded by these factors and incomplete knowledge of the data model will then lead to the project timeline not being under control. All that together then leads to a lack of focus on the data design and planning, and it then compounds and snowballs into missing a lot of major milestones, and at the end of the day often missing the go live, and the resulting integrations from that are often complex and hard to maintain. And really at the end of the day, what you want to end up is not something complex. You want it to be simple, sustainable, and you want it to perform how it is and be easily maintained. So those aspects are always very important in designing the actual integrations. To directly answer the question, when should you start this? Ideally, you should start tackling this 6 months before. Why is it 6 months before your EC implementation kicks off? That is because 6 months is ideal due to the relevance it has on the actual EC implementation. It will give everybody time to absorb the information. It will give you a runway to go through the design decisions that are critical, and it will be outside the pressure of the actual EC implementation. Do it too far ahead of time and the information will no longer be relevant. It will fade from the team's memory on what needs to be done, and the data will change over time as well. So 6 months really is an ideal timeline. 3 months is too short. A year or 2 years is too long. So that's really like the magic area where it is best leveraged. So to recap, what does it mean to prepare your EC implementation? What do you need to do as far as key steps? You really need to know your data model. You need to get to know it and complete any data cleanup before the implementation. You need clear visibility on the entire planning and implementation timeline, and you need to learn about the critical design decisions before the implementation so that you can take as many of those beforehand, and when they do occur during the implementation, you know exactly what you have to expect and you can take them quickly. So with that, I want to kind of give it back to both Michael and Rika and have them talk a little bit about their experience and what they had seen and what they have gone through being a long-term customer for SAP, going through this process of preparation and now being in the implementation. So Michael and Rika, I'll give the mic to you.
Thank you. Yeah, and as mentioned, long-term customer and the part about heavily configured SAP HCM platform, I think we can recognize that picture for sure. But I think what sort of maybe drove us into taking up the collaboration with you guys in Comentec was that actually the points you raise here actually correlated very well with our own main concerns in terms of this. We were not really concerned on EC itself. We're actually mostly concerned on data quality, integration, and all of that, because from our own experiences, from other projects, but also talking to other customers that has been on this journey before us, that is where the majority of the pain came along, and the delays that you also mentioned here in projects. So we were very clear that this was actually where our main concern was, and as also mentioned by Rika, I think with the approach that you came with and the method and what you brought to the table, we thought that this is what we need, and then we moved in that together with you on that journey going forward. And we started. Now you said 6 months. I think we started our EC project in May this year, and we started working with you in the preparations in, I think it was in October 2018, so slightly more than 6 months before. But I think it gave us the dialogue we had with you and the work we did together with you, I think gave us a lot of benefits before actually moving into the implementation project. One of them, concrete example, is that when we then started engaging with the implementation partners that we wanted to choose for our EC implementation project, we were at least looking at some of them and how they responded to it. They were quite puzzled how well prepared we were in terms of specific questions on how they were dealing with migration, integration, and doing all the preparations and so on. So we felt quite well prepared in the dialogues with them. And I think we can also safely say that now we are in the middle of the project right now. We also still feel well prepared in terms of that. We still have lots of stuff and challenges we need to deal with, but I can see still a lot of the preparations we did in the last part of 2018. We're gaining benefits of that here 1 year down the road, more or less. So I think that's definitely something that we can see, and if I were to go back, I would do the same again. I think it's been tremendously valuable for us in having those preparations, having our own mindset in place for what we need to look at to do the actual data cleaning, because we have still data cleaning to do in the project. But if we haven't started up earlier, then I think we would be drowning in data issues of various kinds. So I think it gave us a lot initially, and it's still giving us benefits as we move along the project. And then, of course, still we're not there yet. We haven't went live yet, so of course there's still obstacles ahead of us that can and will appear. But so far we are on track still on this. So I think that's at least some of the things that I picked up on that. I don't know, Rick, if you have anything else to add on top of that, seen from what you have been involved in?
I think we gained a lot from getting an overview of the old platform. So we got some methodology and some templates and a way where we kind of dived through the SAP setup we had. What were the info types? What were the kind of information we had? What had we done of set tables and so on and so on. So we were actually able to document a lot of the setup. So we could during the project now, we can always go back and say, just a moment, we'll go back and say, we have these interfaces. We have this kind of information. We have decided this to be in scope and this to be out of scope and so on. So a good knowledge about what we already have is also something we gained there, and a way of documenting and working with it.
Awesome. That's I know that makes the team here also very happy to hear, and myself as well. So that's great. And thank you so much for sharing that. I'm glad to hear that indeed the preparation had the result and created that confidence to start the partner selection and go from there. So that's awesome. And thank you so much for that. So from here, let's talk a little bit about what we worked on with both you, Rick and Michael. We basically took the experiences there and used it to standardize a lot of the approach more and package it into Envision, as we call it, which is meant to really take all these experiences that we've had over the years and make something that can be replicated throughout every company in each and every way. And that's really to gain the control and visibility on the entire implementation by gathering the knowledge required to prepare the team and you for the road ahead. And through that, we look at the data model, we look at the integrations, we look at the concepts and the business processes, and we produce the plan and the design decisions that need to be done and the resulting data cleanup. And from there, really the impact, and as you've heard both with Michael and Enrique, that you have the clear visibility on the planning and implementation timeline. You are prepared to make those design decisions quickly when they do arise during the implementation, because you've taken a lot of them beforehand already, and a lot of the data cleanup can be completed beforehand. And that's really the power of doing this, where you are able to handle those critical aspects beforehand and move them out of the path of the implementation, where they take a lot more effort and a lot more risk to be in the implementation instead of moving them ahead of it. And that's really something that we can't stress enough here, is that you need to get to know your data model and complete any of that data cleanup before the implementation. You need to have that visibility on the planning and the implementation timeline, and you need to know about these critical design decisions. And that really is the core of making sure you're prepared to step into a successful EC implementation. That said, I do want to share one step that you can take right now that is something you can look at right now and start using and playing around with right now, and that is InfoPorter. A while back, we did a webcast about this subject, and there's a lot of information at SAP that you can find as well. I'll send out the link in an email after this as well about what InfoPorter is and the webcast. Basically, a short overview. InfoPorter is SAP's own tool for migrating data from HCM to Employee Central. It's deployed as part of the integration add-on for the ERP and SuccessFactors Employee Central. It is part of your license. There is no extra fee to use this. And it is the recommended technology and the supported technology when migrating to Employee Central from HCM and then replicating the changes back. So there's a lot of benefits to InfoPorter that we won't go into here, but I advise look at the information that's out there, look at the webcast that we'll send after this, that's pre-recorded, and it will give you some insight into what the benefits are, and it will also give you a little bit of insight into how a actual build and improve cycle will look within using InfoPorter. I know we are at the end of our time, but I do want to be respectful to everybody's time. If there are any questions that are remaining, feel free to email us and ask them, and we'll do our best to give you the most comprehensive answer we can. I hope everybody got from this what they were looking for, and we're looking forward to seeing and talking with you again. Thank you so much also, Rike and Michael, for joining in on this and being a part of this. And I want to thank everybody to be here as well. Hope you have a great rest of your day.